everybody, it's Max with Crypto Talk Now. For a while now, I have learned about WTK, and this has been a project that I've been wanting to do a review on for quite some time. So as promised to the community and so on, here it is. Let's jump into WTK, as in Wadzpay. So first of all, I want to introduce the project to you, just in case you don't know what it's about. There's a few key things that basically separate this particular project from the likes of, Ripple, Stellar, and so on. Basically speaking, this is a payment platform, but what makes it unique is the region that they cater to. Or how about this? The religion that they cater to. So without further ado, let's jump into WTK. And as you see right here, this is straight from their website, which is Wadzpay.com. So basically speaking, what are they, right? Well, let's start with their mission. So like it says right here, Wadzpay is an interoperable and agnostic blockchain-based payments technology provider available as a SaaS platform. The company was founded back in 2018 in Singapore and is currently operating globally across Asia, Pacific, Middle East, Africa, Europe, and even the United States. But for the purposes of this video, we really want to focus on that Middle East region specifically. All right. You're also going to see that they aim to optimize the potential for CBDCs, like it mentions, digital assets towards a revolution in quote unquote payments and so on, like I mentioned before. So Wadzpay is a bank-to-bank technology enabler and currently working with large international payment companies. They even work with banks, global companies to enable digital asset-based transaction processing and settlement, right? So, you may be thinking, well, okay, we already have that. We're going to get to some of the good stuff here in a bit. So what I want to mainly show you is this right here as well. And, this is an article, of course, from late last year, but really pounds home what Wadzpay is trying to do, or what they're trying to build, basically. So this is Anish Jain. I might not be pronouncing that perfectly, but he is the CEO of Wadzpay. All right. Now, this article comes from, of course, a site called Payments, and it tells them basically back then, how the marriage of blockchain and innovation with established systems is giving the rise to the next revolution, quote unquote, in the payments industry. Now, we understand there's some big players, obviously, when it comes to payments. Typically speaking, people are going to think of Ripple, for instance, the bank-to-bank, Stellar, right? Those are some of my big ones personally. And I think a lot of you guys already know that. And a lot of you guys are into those types of ones and so on. But where does Wadzpay, WTK, get injected into the mix? And it's a great question. Look what it says here. He says, quote, "We are building technology that connects blockchain into the traditional and existing payment ecosystem globally so that the adoption becomes far easier and far faster than building something from scratch." Well, that right there is like, okay, well, what are you guys basically doing? Well, when you go further into this, it says, with more than 15 years experience at MasterCard and even American Express, which is pretty impressive in itself, Jain recognized early on the potential for blockchain to revolutionize the payments industry by enabling faster payments, better security, and a lower cost alternative that reduces barriers, of course, to financial inclusion. We all know the old saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. That's a great way of looking at it. Here's a quote that he has. He says, "They're trying to harness blockchain's benefits in the technology that they are building there at WTK. What they are enabling at the same time is not shaking the entire boat or the entire payment ecosystem." Like I mentioned before, founded in 2018, Singapore, and so on, right? But what I like is this right here. Let's jump to the good stuff. Interoperability, like he says, twofold. Wadzpay connects to a bank's mainframe ecosystem and becomes the default blockchain provider. He states this allows the financial institution, which is FI, to tap into any blockchain technology that currently exists or might emerge in the future. The other interoperability it enables is between blockchains. The Wadzpay chain has the ability to jump between different blockchain protocols and process transactions based on a specific financial institution's or customer needs. Here's another quote from him. The beauty of the Wadzpay ecosystem is that it connects not just to one bank specifically or one market. It is a global system which then gives access to different markets as well. He also goes on to mention that Wadzpay is establishing its roots through a variety of programs with public institutions. And again, these are some like real, good things if you think about moving forward, right? So they're going to be working with commercial banks, or already are, payment service providers, large corporations. I mean, already I'm thinking of like, wow, okay, they're working, these guys are a big player in the whole mix, right? So it says, what is also helping the emerging regulatory framework, Jean said that Wadzpay is pro-regulations, and wherever regulations are emerging, they're helping to drive its business. Let's get into just a couple more quotes before we get into some of the really good stuff. So he says, we are getting regulated in certain markets through the central bank, which is also then, gives them a lot of credibility when working with public institutions. He says a state of no regulation is always bad. It creates uncertainty, a sense of we don't know what we should do. And at the end of the day, where we're at right now in the world, you saw a lot of talk about getting that regulatory framework a couple weeks ago. Last week's big narrative, if you will, was, regulatory clarity. You saw, for instance, Brian Armstrong of Coinbase trying to pound that home. You saw Danelle Dixon from Stellar trying to pound that home. Heck, you even saw, Brad Garlinghouse of Ripple. I mean, who's next, basically, right? So you like the idea that Wadzpay, they realize that they, want to sit at the table, if you will, when it comes to this whole thing of payments. But the narrative that they have of recognizing the whole thing with regulation and the importance because of institutional money, you want to see things like that mentioned from a project like this. So it says, as a result of this cooperation, Wadzpay's presence is strong, like I mentioned, in Asia, some of these other regions. Again, let's pay attention to the Middle East specifically, also Africa. He states, last year when we set up our Middle East operation, our early customers were like, why are you here? And he states, because this is something very new. This is exotic. So we are more of a nice to have product that a financial institution might offer. But today, because the market has changed, we are becoming a must have. Now, we understand that, like it says, global adoption, blockchain is looking more and more possible, right? But the key thing is that specific region, right? Like the person asked, why are you here? Because this is something very new, Well, what is really new? The whole concept of these type of payment models in that specific region. Now, why is that important? Jump to the next part on why that's important. So this article was pulled up a while back, and basically speaking, press the wrong button there. Wadzpay and this particular team called GAIDA, might be pronounced GAIDA, they teamed up to reimagine what is referred to as cutting-edge payments experience for pilgrims. Now, I'm not referring to, the pilgrims of that landed on Plymouth Rock, right? The classic Thanksgiving story here in the United States. Now, totally different region. So GAIDA, a leading fintech company in Saudi Arabia, and Wadzpay Middle East Technology, affiliate of Wadzpay Worldwide, have forged a new strategic partnership to power the transformation of pilgrimage payments. Now, you may be wondering, like, are you kidding me? No, it's a real thing. So look what it says. Wadzpay blockchain-based payment solutions allow Hajj and Umrah pilgrims, probably not pronouncing that right either. Hopefully I'm not offending anybody who's, that's like your type of religion, to set up their own e-money wallets on their mobile devices to be used for their expenses. Once the wallet is loaded, the pilgrim is ready to spend in Saudi Arabia with lower transaction fees and a user-friendly refund process. Now you got to keep in mind, When we jump down further into this, you will find out why that is so significant, okay? So it says, according to MasterCard's latest global destination cities index, for instance, Mecca, as we know, Mecca is the supreme holy city for the Islamic religion, right? Says they basically attracted 20 billion in tourist dollars in 2018 alone. You got to keep in mind, I mean, like, even for myself, you know, I want to go to, you know, holy city of, you know, Jerusalem and so on, Israel and so on. You got to keep in mind, you know, for the Islamic religion, Mecca is their, you know, kind of like people refer to Madison Square Garden, the Mecca of basketball. Well, you know, that is literally just that. It is the Mecca, right? So they bring in a lot of tourist dollars, and just that region in general. I mean, there's a lot of people that go in there. Money will be spent. So, like it says, that was back in 2018 alone, right? $20 billion. It says second only to Dubai. I mean, second to Dubai? I mean, Dubai spends a ton of money. So it says the number of pilgrims is expected to increase significantly in the coming years, with the kingdom having set to have a goal to host 30 million pilgrims by 2030, in line with Saudi Vision 2030. It says this year, the Hajj rituals were performed by at least 1 million pilgrims worldwide after 2 years of restrictions, of course, due to COVID. Now, regards to Wadzpay, they also partnered with Algorand, you know, and I myself, I'm into Algorand, but it says, you know, a high-performance, next-generation ISO 222 and Sharia-compliant blockchain with a roadmap, listen to this, to 46,000 transactions per second to deliver industry-leading stability and near-instant finality to its clients. Now, in regards to this thing called GAIDA, it is utilizing the issuance of an e-money wallet specifically for Hajj and Umrah to be used in over 1 million point-of-sale terminals deployed across multiple merchants throughout the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Do you see where we're going with this? Because if you do, understand this basic concept, which I'm sure most of you guys do understand this, and that is this. Does your digital asset, and for instance, your cryptocurrency, this project, does it have supply? Yes. Does it have demand? Well, apparently so. Is it trending? Maybe not be, you know, trending so much yet, but I see more and more people talking about it. You know, I always call it like the crypto trifecta, if you will. But the basic core principles of any particular project for it to do really well, or as the saying goes, go parabolic, if it has tremendous supply and demand, it can really do well. And is the project like unique? Does it have a real use case? Who are the people that they're catering to? There's your answer. That specific region does need to have, you know, something that's a lot more faster and more efficient for their own way of going about things. But you got to keep in mind, well, why didn't they sign up for instance, Ripple, Max, or, you know, Stellar, or some of these other things, right? You got to keep in mind, when it comes to the whole payment model, they have to follow what's referred to as, like, you know, a Sharia type of rule or law, right? Now I get it, you know, you guys see a lot of things in mainstream media. You might be down on the whole thing of Sharia, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to advocate for it or anything. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of, is there opportunity here? Yes, there's definitely opportunity here because it caters to a big conglomerate group of people. In this case, what was it, over 30 million, right? So it's nothing like, you know, to bat an eye at, right? Now look what's also said here. Wadzpay founder and group CEO Anish Jain, who we mentioned before, stated, quote, "I am delighted to team up with GAIDA to deliver the absolute best in payments experiences for pilgrims. Saudi Arabia is home to the annual Hajj and Umrah. About 1 million people from nearly 200 countries perform these pilgrimages with GAIDA merchant and POS networks. Wadzpay is also enabling merchants to benefit from faster, secure, and seamless payments." Rainier Lemons, who is the CEO at GAIDA, said, quote, "The pilgrim market is an incredibly important part of the Saudi economy." And this is, again, if you didn't pay attention earlier, by all means, listen to this. This is some of, like I like to call it, the juicy stuff. It says, which is why we are thrilled to partner with Wadzpay in a move that will unlock vast SME business success for merchants across the kingdom. The integration of an e-wallet into over 1 million merchant POS systems will also make transactions faster and safer for the millions of pilgrims that visit Hajj and Umrah every year. And we are delighted to be able to help them on their way. Now, this guy named Sailesh Malhotra, again, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, he's a GCC at Gaida, said, quote, this partnership enables us to offer our merchants and pilgrims a best-in-class experience whenever they make payments. The delivery of a swift transaction process for merchants and a seamless payment experience for pilgrims are critical drivers for this partnership goal. There's a little bit more we're going to get into. I know a lot of it's verbatim, but this is good stuff. It says Wadzpay, which was awarded, listen to this, very impressive, the top most promising payment and merchant service providers by Silicon India Magazine 2021, is a leading blockchain payment technology solution and service provider. It operates and serves partners and clients across, we mentioned some of this stuff before on the previous page, right? All right. And we got a little bit more of Gaida. They are a leading fintech and fully licensed payment service provider offering digital banking technology, smart payment terminals, and business management solutions for both financial institutions and even small business and retail and digital commerce across the area. They are also founded in Saudi Arabia. The company is expanding rapidly across the region, even in the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, so on and so forth. Listen to this. Founded in 2008 by Saudi entrepreneur Abdullah Faisal Al Othman, the company believes that the latest payments and commerce technology should be accessible, affordable, and intuitive for everyone. The company continues to focus on its mission of empowering merchants with the tools to start, manage, and grow their businesses, yada, yada, right? Very cool stuff. Now, what I want to also show you guys is this down here, and that is, they're not just some flash in the pan. Gaida now has more than 2,000 employees across all offices, over 150,000 merchants, and provides more than support to more than 700,000 terminals within the kingdom with a 75% market share. Wow. I mean, this is not some flash in the pan type of thing they got going on here, right? The company is proud to say that it's the biggest fintech company in Saudi and is ranked one of the top 25 fintech companies in the Middle East by Forbes. So right there, Wadzpay has a really, really powerful partnership with Gaida. So that's why we want to mention them. We're going to jump into this next particular one, and I want to show you this because this made recent news in regards to Wadzpay. It says only 10 companies, including Wadzpay and Ripple, have been selected to present their solutions to the Digital Currencies Conference, quote-unquote, esteemed audience in a series of rapid-fire demonstrations. Audience includes central bank policy and tech leaders. Now think about that for a minute, right? Central bank policy and tech leaders. Now we understand some of the big players, what they're going to do, for instance, with the central banks of Europe, other places, for instance, maybe in Southeast Asia and so on. Don't get me wrong, like Ripple's a big, huge player. And some people, we make the argument like, Ripple's definitely killing it even in the Middle East and so on. And I wouldn't argue with that. But could there also be another player to come to the mix? Could it very well be Wadzpay? And at these particular prices, if you consider, for instance, ISO 222, coins that are tied into that messaging system, if you will, for instance, like people have attitude, well, if you're going to buy Ripple, you're going to buy, Ripple XRP, you're going to buy XLM. If you're going to buy anything tied to ISO 222, you might as well get some IOTA, you might as well get some Algorand, you might as well get some, some of these other ones, right, that are tied into it, like, for instance, people even mention HBAR and so on, right? So it's just, building up your portfolio, QNT, for instance, is ISO TC 307, different ISO standard. But when it comes to your payment portfolio and the ones that are connected, whether you're for CBDCs or not, right? That the whole point is the opportunity behind all this. Is WTK a big player that's part of the whole mix? That should be one of your key things that you would question. My answer would be, again, it's not financial advice. They could very well be, and so there is something solid here, in my opinion. So again, we're going to jump a little bit more into this and look at who's, like I said, who should attend. It says all those interested, involved with digital currency innovators, right? They showed up: central bank, policy, technology leaders, research leaders, all these big ones, right? Private sector. Go to the next page. Look what it says on the digital currency conference. Mentions that this is, in Mexico City, May 17th through the 19th. I mean, that's just only, 2.5 weeks away, basically speaking. Today is basically May 1st, right? But I'm going to jump down to this key highlight, and it says, open to all organizations with a digital currency related solution, including fintech startups and, listen to this, commercial bank innovation hubs. The Innovation Showcase will provide a unique platform for 10 chosen participants to present their solutions to the Digital Currency Conference's esteemed audience in a series of rapid-fire demonstrations prior to the conference's welcome reception on the 17th of May. Now, pretty impressive stuff. Why so impressive? Well, you got to keep in mind, XRP, 20 billion market cap, WTK, like roughly 12 million. We'll take more of a deeper look into that here on CMC as well. But that's impressive, If we're always talking about getting into a project early that doesn't have that big of a market cap. People love doing that, right? We all love doing that. I love doing it. I'm sure you do as well. I want to jump out of this, and I also want to show you just a tad bit more. And like it says, right, selected one of the, WTK, as in Wadzpay, was selected as one of the finalists for the Digital Currency Awards Best Innovation category alongside of Stellar's XLM. Yeah, no problem. We'll just throw this in the mix, right? And to be a part of that elite company, you better believe, for me personally, I want to learn a little bit more about that, right? Who wouldn't? Like I mentioned on this particular example, Stellar, XLM, market cap 2.5 billion, WTK is in Wadzpay, market cap 12 million, right? So where did this come from, right? Well, we'll take it right to that. So this was from, again, the Digital Currency Conference, and like I mentioned, it's going to be on May 18th in Mexico City. But one thing that's really cool is what you see here. Some of these awards and the finalists, right? But like you see right on this number 2 category, Best Innovation in Digital Currency. All right, let's read it for a second. This award recognizes outstanding innovations in the digital currency space, including new platforms, products, or apps that have the potential to transform the way we use and interact with digital currencies, including central bank digital currencies. The category is open to innovations that have launched and how customers and that offer users a unique and valuable way to access digital assets, crypto DeFi, or other related financial services, including even CBDCs. Innovations that offer greater security, transparency, and scalability in the digital currency space, or that leverage emerging technologies such as AI, that's interesting, will be given special consideration. The judges will consider factors such as the level of innovation, the potential impact on the industry, and the ability of the innovation to scale and reach a wider audience. All right, so that was really cool to see them be part of these finalists right next to Stellar. Very, very impressive, right? We got a little bit more in regards to this. So, for instance, it says Wadzpay times FIGA, basically speaking, is a $4 billion tokenization partnership. Together, Wadzpay and FIGA will tokenize the rights to preserve or I should say, rights to reserves of potash, phosphate, and iron ore, which are to be extracted over the next 25 years. The tokenization of mining, in this case, potash, phosphate, and iron ore, sounds interesting, right? So it says FIGA is empowering SMEs to reach new heights by providing a framework for financing. Anash tweets has said recently, quote, Wadzpay is already well underway with FIGA tokenization project. That's, that's impressive in itself right there, because, I mean, you come to the realization that, there's apparently so much more than just payments. All right, here's a little bit more in regards to this, and back to the subject of, Muslim pilgrims and so on, and this is the icing on the cake, if you will. So back in November 17th of 2022, this publication, which is IFN FinTech, like it says, on the pulse of Islamic FinTech, published this, right? And this was a really, really standout article, to say the least. It really helps with this outline. At least I thought so. So I thought I'd bring it to you guys. So it says Wadzpay and guide to target Muslim pilgrims with blockchain-based digital wallet. Again, kind of like a reiteration of what I mentioned earlier, but it's going to get, again, to like some of the, in my opinion, the juicy stuff, as far as if you're on the, cups of, or on the fence, I should say, of like, hey, is Wadzpay for you, and so on, right? And, me personally, I'm not into Wadzpay yet. It's one of those projects that I'm thinking about definitely getting into. I'm just kind of waiting for maybe a little bit more of a pullback. I saw that it's roughly around the 2-cent mark. And I just kind of, want to say to myself, like, could it basically stay around these particular levels or pull back a little bit more? But whatever the case be, whether I get into it or not, it's not financial advice. And I also want to state this, you got to consider that this project, could really go somewhere, right? And a lot of times we take these deep dives when it comes to some of these projects and so on. But, I'll show you a little bit more in regards to this on CMC, because they don't have a confirmed market cap and still considered pretty low on the rankings. But look what it's mentioned here, and I'll blow this up just a tad bit more for you to just read it a little bit easier when you follow along with me. All right. So it says a Saudi fintech company, and by the way, obviously this is Mecca, right? So it says a Saudi fintech company and a Dubai-based regional blockchain payment company have joined hands to deploy a digital wallet designed specifically for Hajj and Umrah across over a 1 million point-of-sale terminal throughout Saudi Arabia. Again, it's just kind of like a little bit more of what I was telling you guys earlier, right? But what I really like mentioned here is that, like it says, this is going to facilitate Muslim pilgrims to set up their own e-money wallets on their own mobile devices, allowing them to make payments in Saudi Arabia. Now, you might have missed it. Maybe fast forward, where the case be, or maybe I didn't do the best job of explaining it earlier. I'll reiterate this and try to pound it home even that much more. You may think, well, what is wrong with this region? Why don't they just jump into any type of payment model? The reason for that is because they have some strict guidelines, again, when it comes to Sharia law, right? Whether we are for that or not, right? Here in the United States, let's face it, a lot of us aren't. But again, is there opportunity here? And if so, what would be the one that this region would want to choose as far as their choice for a payment service? Could it very well be Wadzpay? I think so, because at the end of the day, don't get me wrong, I love Ripple's XRP, I love Stellar's XLM. I've stated numerous times, especially when it comes to Stellar, I think at some point they are going to be like the world's cryptocurrency, if you had to pick one for that, the peer-to-peer money. But you also got to keep in mind, they may not be the one as far as, a Sharia payment service platform. Enter in Wadzpay, right? So that's something to consider. So, again, we talked a lot about Guidea, however way you pronounce it, and so on, and what they're basically looking to do, but what I want basically mention here is, this bottom part, right? says, it is perhaps worth noting that Wadzpay has partnered with Sharia compliant blockchain company, which is Algorand, believe it or not, if you didn't know that, with a roadmap to 46,000 transactions per second, right, to deliver stable and near instant finality to its clients. And that's one of the main reasons why I want to show this part of the article. This is one of several Muslim-focused projects for Algorand. It says Dublin-based IBFnet is building a metaverse compliant with Islamic teachings on Algorand. And it's like, wow, that is big. Why is that so big? Well, apparently speaking, WTK is the biggest payment tool in the metaverse currently speaking, right? And, we always talk about the whole concept of the metaverse. Obviously, there's not going to just be one. There's going to be different metaverse platforms. And there is this whole thing and talk of, well, inside the metaverse, it's not just going to be fun and games. You're going to have particular metaverse projects that are going to focus on having like the educational side, right? So there's all this fun and games and social media stuff going on. But there's going to be platforms in which they have all that stuff going on as well. But just like kind of like the real world, right? We got to drive to our schools, and there's classrooms. There's, as we know, virtual classrooms and so on. So like you see right here, with a Sharia compliant blockchain company, which is Algorand, them working with Wadzpay and having this whole thing of, with the IBF net, building a metaverse compliant, Islamic teachings on that particular metaverse play, that makes this very unique, in my opinion. And of course, I'm going to show you guys this next part before we get to the whole thing with CMC. But, I think there's a lot here, to say the least. I mean, at the end of the day, like I was mentioned, it's all about the supply and demand. Now, here it is, the last part. I said the last part would be, the icing on the cake. As far as the whole concept of, like, is this a unique payment model? Yes. This is actually the real icing on the cake, because it's that statement I made about them being like the biggest payment platform in the metaverse, right? And we understand that's a big statement, right? So it says IBF Net to launch halal metaverse by year end. And let's jump into this. So it says blockchain-based firm IBF Net has begun work on building a metaverse compliant with Sharia teachings with a view of unveiling it before 2022 ends. Obviously, we're well into 2023, but it says IFN FinTech has learned the metaverse builds upon the Dublin-based company's flagship project of developing and hosting blockchain platforms, use cases, as well as build a miniature Islamic economy. Now, again, if they're building a miniature Islamic economy, you have to have a form of currency in that economy. It don't matter if it's virtually speaking or in real life. Heck, I'll even throw on World of Warcraft. At the peak of World of Warcraft, that particular video game, that game in itself was bringing in so much money that it was even bigger than certain third world economies, right? Which is insane. Like, you wouldn't think that a video game would have a bigger economy than, or bring in more GDP, I guess you could say, than some other particular countries. But it very well did at the height and popularity of it. All the more for a metaverse project, right? So if you understand metaverse and all the potential of it and so on, you can understand that this is pretty big. All right, I want to show you guys this. It says the project involves the creation of a metaverse that gives due consideration to the uniqueness of Southeast Asian region in terms of faith, culture, regulatory policy, environment. Now, earlier I mentioned, let's put the focus on, for instance, like the Middle Eastern section and so on. But this is correct. You got to understand that in Southeast Asia, you do have a large Islamic population. Perfect example would be Indonesia. I believe 90% of the country practices the Islamic faith, right? So it says, If we define metaverse as a three-dimensional virtual environment that would enable people to interact with each other, create assets, play games, work and collaborate with each other, then the factors outlined above would have a critical role in defining a shape in a given society, explained IBF Net. Look at this quote. For instance, the Islamic faith is practiced by 1.8 billion people across the globe, probably higher by now, of which 240 million live in Southeast Asia alone. Again, keep in mind, like, for instance, Indonesia, other parts of that area, Singapore, Malaysia, right? So it says, as such, the guiding principles of the faith known as Sharia will have a perceptible influence on behavioral dimensions in the metaverse. So how do I pound this home just a little bit more? I think you guys can come to your own conclusion here. We have something very unique here. And what we have unique here is what WTK, as in Wadzpay, brings to the table when it comes to just that, a payment platform. But if you are able to be the one or the unique one with a unique business model with blockchain technology and interoperability, you name it, on two main things for both, let's face it, real life, right? You know, like people, you know, in that region, like we mentioned earlier, the concept of Mecca and, you know, millions of people going into that region per year for tourism. And you can accomplish or introduce, hey guys, in this area, we got this whole thing going on with a payment model that's Sharia compliant. You guys didn't want to get involved with any of this blockchain technology or distributed ledger technology before because it wasn't Sharia compliant. See where I'm going? Now there's this. That is absolutely massive, right? And then on top of that, now this other thing of, like it says right here, IBF Net first began exploring the concept of Sharia metaverse in late 2021. It says this idea became the basis of the primary research agenda for the group's Center of Excellence in Jakarta, launched in January. Of course, Jakarta, I believe, is in Indonesia, right? I believe that's the capital. Let's get into this last part about it. It says the project specifically has two clear disruptive goals. Excuse me. One, it aims to create an open and meta learning place for acquiring and sharing of knowledge anytime, anywhere. And two, it purports to create an open and meta marketplace for buying and selling with far higher levels of information and therefore significantly higher consumer and investor protection. It will reconfigure and convert the present miniature Islamic economy developed by IBF Net, which is a centralized, closed community-focused system, to an open system with far superior features brought in by metaverse technology, according to Mohammed Alim, who's the CEO of IBF Net. Now, of course, there's more on this particular one, so on. And I don't want to get into all that because, I mean, this is a pretty deep dive to begin with. And you're more than welcome, of course, to go on the, Wadzpay.com and, learn all there is to know about and so on. I just want to give you the main things that, like, grabbed my attention and I think other people's attention who introduced Wadzpay to me. I want to jump to CMC in closing. This project has been around since roughly about October, maybe late September of 2021. They had all-time highs of basically 35 cents. The lows actually wasn't that long ago. We did see this roughly as low as, I think, 0.005. Currently speaking, it's sitting at 0.02127, so a little over 2 cents. They do have a self-reported circulating supply. This is not confirmed on CMC, though, of 50% of that supply being in circulation, which is 500 million WTK tokens. They have a max supply of 1 billion of these tokens. The original contract, of course, is with Ethereum. You got to keep in mind they're looking to, become their own blockchain and so on in the future. Another thing I want to mention is they have an unconfirmed market cap of 10,632,000. You got to keep in mind when that is confirmed, this rank will dramatically go up. Now, if you're wondering where can you purchase or get Wadzpay WTK, you got to keep in mind you can click on markets on CMC, and you can't really get it at many places. Currently speaking, it's only on Bitmart and BitTrue. My rule of thumb for Bitmart is I usually use that for my crap coins. You know what I mean? That's why some people call it Mart. Bad joke, I know. But yeah, for like meme coins and so on, I get it from there. So in reality, if I was going to get WTK, I probably would get it from there. I never used BitTrue before. I don't even know if it's something that I can get here in the United States. But as far as the pairings, as you can see, it is paired with USDT on both Bitmart and BitTrue, and then you can also use Circle's USDC pairing with WTK. Do I know if there's going to be any news as far as other exchanges in the future? Could very well be. Hopefully, we'll try to continue to cover this particular project and so on. But in closing, that's pretty much it for the most part. Other than this right here, they do, of course, have a Twitter. I'll show you guys that real quick. And here it is, 18,500 followers. But at the end of the day, my thing is this. I become more and more interested in this project, and depending on the market and so on, I may very well just make a entry into this position, make a position into this at any particular point, because the way I look at it is that supply, that demand, this thing is very, very unique, and who they cater to in that specific region. So in closing, guys, thank you so much for watching today's video deep dive in regards to WTK. It has been something that the community has requested for quite some time now. More than glad to bring it to you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think in regards to WTK and where they're going. Do you feel as though it's one of the most unique payment/metaverse platforms there are out there? If so, elaborate a little bit more on that. Maybe you could even teach me something new. But in closing, thanks again for watching. Check out our live show if you haven't done so already. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. It's every single day of the week. And if anything, maybe we'll cover a little more of WTK. All right, guys, that's it for now. Smash that like if you haven't done so already, and please hit that subscription if you haven't done so already as well, and as well as that bell notification if you don't mind. Have a great night or evening, or morning, I should say, depending on where you're at. Over and out for now. Have a blessed night, everybody.